Welcome to the Be on the Move podcast, hosted by Andrew Ronchetto. Through thoughtful conversations, we explore how innovation fuels growth for humanity, uncovering the stories and ideas that shape lasting impact. And now your host, Andrew Ronchetto.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Be on the Move. I'm kind of excited about this episode because it's going to get into some things I know we all struggle with. So this whole aspect of like being overwhelmed with digital clutter or even physical clutter for that matter, and these never-ending to-do lists. Like in my world, I mean, I'm sure we're going to dive into it here. I've got those to-do lists. And my guest here today is Frank Buck. He has been focused on time management, and he's #1 in the world for global gurus here. So, I mean, we've got the best guy to be talking with in this context. And he wrote a book about getting organized, but not just getting organized, getting digitally organized. So I love that about what we're going to talk about today, because it's so important to help reduce stress and build resiliency into our life with smart digital task lists and calendars and notes. I mean, I'm already getting overwhelmed here. So before we get any further, let me introduce you to Frank. Welcome to the show.
Andrew, thank you so much for having me. We're going to have a ball here.
Absolutely. I got to ask you, because I'm sure this has come from decades or years of experience just twisting the wheels. And I'll say for myself here, as I was just mentioning at the beginning, I've been a consultant for the longest time. So I've got my email, it's personal, it's work. I've got my client's email. I might be working for multiple clients. I mean, the list of calendars and emails and to-do lists. I'm really curious, like how you kind of took that shift in your career from being an educator to really driving into productivity coaching, and how that transition helped you shape the way you look at time management for folks like myself, really.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, when I first got into education, it was the early 80s. So everything was still pencil and paper. And, you just had to have good systems to stay organized. But I think the thing for me was I realized early on, as those little Apple IIe computers were starting to appear, that, I think for me, the first epiphany was this funky thing called a spreadsheet. What's a spreadsheet? And then I read about it and went, man, I could put my grade book on this and it would average the grades and it would do the grade sheets. And I regained one Saturday out of every 6 because it took a full Saturday to handle everything related to grades. And every 6 weeks you were doing a report card. So it bought me tremendous time. So from early on, I mean, we're talking Reagan's in the White House, and I'm looking for ways to use technology to make my life easier. And it's just sort of continued. And and I'm finding that other people, they need this. There's nobody to teach it. So that kind of opened the doors for me to just show people easy ways to use technology to make your life a whole lot easier.
Now, I can totally appreciate that, because I think, like you talked about, just the simplicity, I mean, of spreadsheets as what you were dealing with, back in the 80s. And you called the computers small, but I know they were like room size in some cases.
Yeah.
But like, do you, like, when you were thinking about it and you were getting started with this, were there some like key principles you picked up on, or like practices that you started to introduce into your life that helped you keep, I think, as you said, the system simple?
Yeah, absolutely. And really, it was looking at what I was doing pencil and paper and going, what is the digital parallel to this? Before I went digital, well, there's my day timer. So there are those 2 facing pages. So on the left-hand page, there's my calendar, there are my tasks. On the right-hand page, there are the notes that I'm taking today. And so it's all there in one place. I know where to look for it. And so when a to-do came my way, it was open the book, jot it down, close the book. You have now earned the right to forget about it. So what's the digital parallel for that? So on my phone, sync to my desktop, through the cloud. Well, there's Google Calendar. There are my appointments. Remember the Milk. There are my tasks. Evernote. There are my notes. It's like the same thing in a digital fashion. And it's the same principle of as soon as something hits my radar that I've got to do, I am hitting a little hotkey on my computer and typing that task in and then going back to what I was doing. Or if I'm out and about, I'm grabbing my phone, I'm hitting one button, I'm talking, it's now on the task list. I go right back to doing what I was doing. I earn the right to forget about it. And then later in the day, look at what I've got, put it in the order I want to do it. Just like the pencil and paper days. Here are all your little notes running around, put them in the order you want to do it, get to work. We're doing the same thing here digitally. You throw it all in the system, put it in the order you want to do it, and then just work your list.
How how have you maybe seen with maybe some of your clients or some of the conversations you've had the aspect where they can't sync everything, in that context of I got to keep company and other information separate. We talk about cybersecurity without us
Mhm.
getting down a rabbit hole there. So what have you done to evolve kind of what you were talking about there? Because I loved it, talking about the email and the task list and the Evernote or any note taker for
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
matter. But like, well, how have you evolved the way you've talked about this with folks as I'll say the focus on security has become more prominent?
Exactly. If your company allows you to mix personal and professional, yeah, because I'm one person, let me see it all in one place. Now, if you have to have, say, a separate personal email address and company email address, as probably everybody does, um, for instance, Gmail will let you, I've got about 4 email addresses, but Gmail checks them all and brings them all to that one place. So if your company will allow that, hey, I would do it. And same thing, with the task list, personal and professional on the same place. Now, if your company says, look, we're using Outlook and don't you dare put any of your professional stuff in our personal, okay, then we've got a personal calendar that's maybe on Google Calendar, and we've got our Outlook calendar. And you go to your app, and you've got the app for each one. And when I arrive at the office, here's the one I'm using. When I go home, I'm using this. But for each one, you have a place to put things, and they're in the system, and you work the system instead of just trying to remember everything. That doesn't work. We got too much going on.
This is true. About the 10,000 things I've had to do this morning before we started this episode. I know
Yeah.
the feeling. But what I liked about what you're talking about there is just this idea of, in some ways, compartmentalizing this, what it needs to be done at work and almost trying to box it off. It sounds like
Mhm.
put it in the construct of the time you're at work and then put in a different context everything outside of it for those folks that don't have the luxury of bringing it all together. So
Yeah.
I can really appreciate the way you're talking about that and trying to be simple with it.
Mhm.
It feels like
Yeah.
subconscious. You're like, yeah, no duh, but I mean, we don't do it enough.
Right,
It feels
right.
like.
And to follow up on that word of context, to break it down even further than that, when I'm out running errands, let me see all the errands that I have to run. Now, when I'm sitting at home, I don't need to see those. I can't do anything about them. So, in my task list, I'll just tag things. This is an errand. This is a phone call. This is something to talk to my wife about. So I have a tag for her so that when she and I are together, I can run through a bunch of them. But when she's not around, I'm not seeing them. I don't need to see them. And so having that context, it kind of puts some little boundaries around it so that you can batch similar items. Just like making a batch of cookies. Nobody would roll out the dough and get the chocolate chips and heat up the oven and all that to make one cookie. For just about that much more effort, you could make 3 dozen of the things. So I like to do the same thing with my task. Sit down and work on a bunch of the same thing at the same time. I prepare all my birthday cards for the whole year, about 50 of them
Wow.
in one sitting. You know, we get the cards, decide who they're going to. We got the little address labels run in one sitting, sign the cards, seal the cards, and then where the postage stamp is going to go, put the date the thing needs to go in the mail. And then I just drop them all in my tickler file, physical tickler file, a holdover from an old business tool that I learned from my dad when I was like 8 years old, 31 folders, one for each day of the month. And then behind that, 12 folders, one for each month of the year. When do I want to see this again? Oh, I need to send this card on October the 25th. Well, fine. Drop it in the October folder. Forget about it. October 1st, you're going to see that. And all the other October things go, oh, I want to send the card this day in October. Again, you set it up on the front end, you earn the right to forget about it. And then you're just handling little things and realizing that by nature, we do the things that are easy. If I've got two things on my list, buy shoestrings, solve world hunger. Well, one is a whole lot more important than the other. But at
Sure.
the end of the day, shoestrings will have been bought because I know where to go. I know how to get them. I know roughly how much they cost. I know how to install them. I'm going to do that off and get it done. World hunger is going to be sitting there for 40 million years. And so I think the question becomes, how do we make it easy? How do we take all of our stuff and go, well, let me break this thing down? And well, gosh, I could at least get started by making this phone call. And then before you know it, you not only made that phone call, but then you made the follow-up call to somebody else. And the next thing you know, you got half the dadgum thing done before lunch.
Well, and I think where you're getting at a little bit here, it maybe, and we haven't said it yet, but this idea of like, setting it and forgetting it almost, but as a way of reducing stress. Cause I know like when there's a ton of stuff on my list, you feel like the stress barometer just increasing. And I know it can be a big factor or struggle for folks. And so I don't know if, you've seen or found some practical solutions with folks that in addition to the folders. I don't know that I have folders yet, but like
Yeah.
but this whole idea of being able to file it away, so it's out of mind, out of sight until that moment, and then you kind of get into a new practice or a new habit that checks it every morning, so to say.
Yeah.
Have you found some other practical solutions that help deal with the stress related to being more productive?
Well, yeah, the biggest thing, if somebody said, I'm starting at square one, I just got to get organized. Where do I start? I would say, write stuff down. If you want to go pencil and paper, that's fine. You have a particular notepad that's with you all the time. And as soon as something hits your radar, bam, it goes right on there. Not 5 minutes later, not 10 minutes later. And I tell people, where we're the most organized? The grocery list.
True.
We don't go, oh, we're just about out of ketchup. I like to do things when I'm thinking about it. So we're out of ketchup. While I'm thinking about it, let me just get in the car and go to the grocery store and get ketchup. You could do that, but it's so inefficient, especially when you get back home and you commence making your hamburger. Now with a whole bottle of ketchup, you realize we're out of pickles. Another trip to the grocery store. And we also don't go, oh, ketchup. I can remember ketchup. Next time at the store, I'll get ketchup and pickles, ketchup and pickles. And then there's one more thing to add, and there's one more thing. And you wind up coming home with a whole bunch of stuff, and you still forgot the ketchup. But what we all do is this. As soon as we say, we need ketchup, we go to the grocery list, which you can find where?
Kitchen counter.
There you
Phone.
go. Or, or magnetized to the refrigerator
Yep.
door for you people. It's one. And as soon as we write ketchup on that list, we forget about ketchup. And then that little list that had zero part of our attention has 100% of our attention when we walk in the door of the grocery store. And I'm just suggesting that we run the rest of our lives just like we run the grocery list. And if somebody's getting started, I would say pencil and paper, it is really the best way, you know? It's kind of like we want to teach a child how to add and subtract. Okay, here's a calculator. No, no. Let's teach you how to do it. Let's teach you the concept. Let's see you do it pencil and paper. And then when you can do it that way, the calculator, it gives you speed. And that's what a digital system doesn't organize you. Because if you have a, if you don't have a system, then you just have more places for it to get lost. So I'd start pencil and paper. And then when it's a lot of volume, I need the speed, especially the speed as far as searching things. Did I put this list on the list or not? I have this person who's just walked in the door. I know I've got some things. How quickly can I put all those things about them together? Yeah, search for their name on the list. Boom, the list shrinks if it's a digital list. Start with paper, and then when you need the speed, and I think there comes a point where we all need the speed. Then move to digital. So that's the biggest thing. Write that sucker down, and then put stuff in the order you want to do it. Get busy. It's really easy. And when people get to this level, they go, "Why did I not think of this before?"
Well, and because you were talking about there is like, how do I strike a balance between like using technology and just writing it on paper? And I think like one of the things I'm taking away from that is get the practice going in a way that's as simple for you to I'm gonna say embedded in
Mhm.
your day to day. Like you said,
Yeah.
the magnet on the refrigerator with the list. I do forget about it until the moment I got to go to the store.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, how do I do that in other parts? And I love that in the sense of how we then say, well, what's the transition point to digital? And how
Mhm.
you're really talking about, you could start digital, but we tend to sometimes remember paper more. And the digital part allows us to scale, allows us to move faster, sort it,
It it
you
it
know.
it does. And 2 things in particular, for any of us that used a paper planner and really used it well, where truly everything we needed to do, we wrote it down. And what happened was at the end of the day, there were always a lot of things, our eyes are bigger than our stomach. And
Always.
so there were those things that didn't get done, and you had to rewrite the list. You had to rewrite those tasks for the next day and with the digital list, you don't have to do that. If there's something on the remember the milk I didn't get done, and there always is, that's okay. It's on the list for tomorrow. And I haven't rewritten the to-do list since 2001. And the other thing is all the repeating things. I was a band director, for right out of college. You wouldn't believe how many little bitty things there are that go into putting together a junior high band concert. But the nice thing about it is once you've identified them all, and once we're going to do that concert every spring about the same time, and it's the same task, I can put those tasks on the list and say, give it this date and say, repeat every year. So everything from remembering to give your dog the heartworm pill once a month to changing the air filter to getting your driver's license renewed every 4 years, for crying out loud. Who wants to keep up with all of that in their head? Put it on the list, tell it when it needs to repeat. And that digital list does a marvelous job of you check it off, it goes away, and it comes back exactly when you need it. A week from now, a year from now, 10 years from now, it's there.
Yeah, I was so talking about the future a little bit because you talk about 10 years out there. I gotta ask you, like, do you see some things like maybe right in front of us, just from your experience and with clients and the work you've been doing that really kind of, I'll say, challenges us as we kind of move forward here? Maybe it's with technology, maybe it's other things in life I'm not even thinking about, but are there some challenges you foresee in the future that we should be aware of as individuals?
Definitely the amount of information that we're dealing with. They said, we'll be paperless, and there's all the the explosion of information because it is so easy to get, it's so easy to transfer, and now, I mean, with the AI, when you can just say, I am doing dot 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 dot. Could you write me a 10-page report? And it does it, and it's so easy. Then it just, and so then one of the big questions that has to be answered is, with all of this information that's coming to us, and a lot of it is good information that would be useful to us later if we could put our hands on it when we need it. So, when I was a younger man, it was, well, when I was a real young man, it was, how do you keep up with those paper reports that you got? What kind of folder system do you have in the filing cabinet? And then in the 90s, when everything was, digital folders and things, okay, how do you set up your digital folder system so that you can find the particular document that you want? Where do you put that report? Where do you put that spreadsheet? And now it's, how do you put your hands on that particular statistic that's in the middle of something that you vaguely remember reading, or that you totally forgot about it, but you do a little search in, like for me, Evernote is my note-taking app of choice. And bam, there it is for you. And my gosh, the ability today, say again, sticking with Evernote, that maybe I've handwritten a page of cursive, you know, take a picture of it. Well, we've had the OCR capability for a long time and be able to search with it. But now to be able to take a picture and then hit a little button that says transcribe, and it takes my cursive writing and turns it into editable digital text and does an amazing job of it. It's scary. So then where do you put that information? And
Yep.
so having that calendar so that you show up when you need to show up, having the task list so that you're doing the things that you need to do, and then getting very serious about digital notes so that the information that comes to you, that it's like a steel trap, that once it comes your way, it is yours, and you're not having to remember it here, but you've got a trusted system that you can always search. It makes us, people will think we're a whole lot smarter than we really are, and we won't tell them our secret.
Well, we will with this podcast for
We
sure.
will, because everybody will be watching this.
We hope so. It'll be part of your toolbox, so to say.
That's right.
No, but maybe one thing to just kind of close it out here, because I think you
Yeah.
talk about just the importance of keeping it simple and whatnot, and the importance of really focusing on organizing and planning. How do you see really all this driving towards a more purposeful and fulfilling life for folks? Is it purely just about being able to just drop it off and reduce the stress? Or are there other elements that you'd love for people to appreciate by just taking the time and effort to do what you're talking about?
Yeah, and I think so much of it is, organization, time management, productivity. For what? It's going to save you time. Now, what are you going to do with the time? Are you just going to find more little things to do? Or is there something, is there a vision of where you want to take your life? And a lot of these little bitty things are holding you back, so that once you do get the email empty and you got your desk clean, and now what do you want to do? Do you want to see a lot of the world? Do you want to have a significant relationship with that other person? Uh, is there an advanced degree that you want? Do you want to move forward in the company? Of course, all of those now, they're now more to-dos, but it's sort of at a higher level. So I like to think of, some people are like, well, let me start at the top and work my way down. And I'm like, no, let's go the other way. Let's clean things up. Let's clean up that brush and just finish some of these little things and get them out of the way. Kind of like putting together a puzzle, and you start with, let me find the corner pieces first. All right, now let me kind of get the frame of it, and the further you go, the more it tends to solve itself. And the pieces that just kind of didn't seem to fit when there were 5,000 of them, now when you're down to 15 pieces that don't fit, well, wait, that one goes there. Now they're 14. Oh, and then they just start to fall like dominoes. The more you get organized, the easier it is to get the rest.
I love that. As we're getting ready to close this out here, I don't know if there's anything you want to share with folks where they could get anything to help out and learn more about what you're doing and what's possible, let's say, in the art of organization.
Yeah.
But is there somewhere they can go?
Okay. Come to my website, frankbuck.org. So just my name, and I'm .org. And right off the bat, on that homepage, join the email list. I'm going to send you two things. One's going to get your desk clean, just like this one. And the other is going to put everything you have to do in one digital place. I had put together a very, very comprehensive ebook on how I set up and use Remember the Milk and the strategy, the whole 9 yards. Going to save you tons of time. And then every Tuesday, there's an email from me that just gives you things that are actionable that I think will make your life better. While you're at that website, I mean, I've been blogging since 2005 or something. So if it relates to organization and time management, there's probably a blog post there. A few years ago, I started also adding video. So there's tons of stuff. You can do it one at a time. You can binge on some of it, but and it's all there really to help people. And if you want a book, I have two I can share with you. Get Organized, Time Management for School Leaders, and Get Organized Digitally, The Educator's Guide to Time Management. But hey, the stuff in there, I don't care if you're a doctor, a lawyer, whatever. That's going to help you. So, but it's all on the website, frankbuck.org.
I appreciate that, Frank. And for everybody out there, we'll put this in the show notes so you don't have to scribble it down if you haven't yet. Put it on your task list, so to say, to get out there. But thank you very much, Frank, for joining us. I fully agree with you that everything you were talking about wasn't just for educators. It's for all of us, myself included. I'm kind of thinking about it right now, where I can go with it and take it. So I appreciate the conversation. I look forward to our listeners checking into your website as well as listening to more of what you've got out there. Because, 2005 has got a wealth of content. So that is amazing. And I really appreciate that. But until next time, everybody, thank you so much for listening in. Thank you again, Frank, and we'll catch you soon. Cheers.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Be on the Move. Don't forget to follow us, rate the show, and share with others. If you're ready to dive deeper, visit us at beyondplatform.com. Catch you next time.